Most people are afraid of their dark side. They think anger, jealousy, desire, and insecurity are things to get rid of. In fact, Carl Jung believed the shadow was not the worst part of you, but the most ignored part of you. Today, we're going to explore Carl Jung's most misunderstood lesson about the shadow and why facing it is not weakness, but the source of real strength, confidence, and self. The shadow is not what makes you bad. It is what you were taught to hide. From a very young age, we learn an unspoken rule. To be accepted, we must behave correctly. If you showed anger and were punished, you learned to suppress anger. If you showed confidence and were mocked, you learned to shrink. If you were sensitive and told to toughen up, you learned to hide emotion. Little by little, you began cutting parts of yourself away, not because they were wrong, but because they were inconvenient. Those rejected parts didn't disappear. They went underground. That is the shadow. The shadow contains emotions you were never allowed to express, desires you were told were unacceptable, and even strengths you were discouraged from owning. This is why the shadow is so misunderstood. People assume it only contains darkness. But Carl Jung believed it also holds lost potential. Confidence that was called arrogance. Ambition that was labeled selfishness. Anger that was never allowed to speak. The shadow is created not by evil but by adaptation. The danger begins when we pretend the shadow doesn't exist. When the shadow is ignored, it doesn't stay quiet. It leaks out in ways we don't understand. We overreact to small things. We judge others harshly for traits we secretly carry. We feel emotionally stuck without knowing why. The person who despises arrogance often hides their own confidence. The person obsessed with kindness often suppresses deep resentment. The person who prides themselves on being good may be terrified of their own impulses. Here's the part most people get wrong. Carl Jung did not say we should destroy the shadow. He said we must integrate it. Integration does not mean acting out your darkest impulses. Integration does not mean acting out your darkest impulses. When anger is acknowledged, it becomes assertiveness. When envy is admitted, it loses its grip. When desire is understood, it stops controlling behavior unconsciously. True goodness, Carl Jung believed, comes from choice, not repression. People who integrate their shadow feel different. They are calmer, more grounded, less reactive. They don't need to prove they're good, because they know what they're capable of. They don't fear their darker thoughts, because they understand them. Inside the shadow is raw psychological energy. When denied, these forces destroy. When integrated, they empower. Shadow integration begins with honesty. Carl Jung believed that what disturbs us in others is often a mirror of what we've buried within ourselves. The shadow is not asking to be acted out, it is asking to be seen. That's why Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The shadow is not your enemy, it is your unfinished self. And when you face it, not with fear, but with understanding, you don't become darker, you become whole. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. And if you want more psychology-based content like this, subscribe and stay curious.